Good evening, everyone. My name is Eric Eichhoff, and I serve as the Associate Director of Alumni Relations at Carroll University. Thank you for joining us this evening for our next installment of the JCU Alumni Author Series. The Alumni Author Series was launched in November of 2020 as a way to highlight those who have written books, articles, poems, screenplays, and other written works within the JCU alumni community. We've been blown away by the interest in the program from within our community, and we are excited about the future of this program. Tonight, we are fortunate to have Leah Berdysz here to speak with us about her upcoming book, Conscious Empowerment, a guide to helping girls build self-esteem and confidence. Leah is on a mission to empower and educate girls on how to be beautiful from the inside out through discovery of social, mental, and physical components. After graduating from Carroll University with her Bachelor's of Arts in Exercise Science and Entrepreneurship in 2017, Leah founded Empowered and Poised LLC. She is working towards her Master's of Science in Social Administration, MSW equivalent, with a focus on school social work at Case Western Reserve University. Before we get into our program tonight and our conversation, I'd like to provide you with some tips for this evening's program. First, please make sure you are muted throughout the duration of the program. If you have thoughts or questions for Leah, please use the chat feature. Following the structured program portion of the program, we'll curate questions from the chat and I will pose them to her on your behalf. Finally, we suggest that you use the full screen option to view tonight's program. And now on to our conversation. Good evening, Leah. It's great to see you this evening. Thank you so much for being here with us. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your upcoming book?
Absolutely. Good evening, Eric and everybody else. I'm so excited to be here. I told Eric before this started that I might get on and just like start dancing because I was so excited. And if you know me or had me in class, you know that I'm a ball of energy sometimes. So yes, thank you for the introduction. I think you said a lot of the really important stuff, but I did found Empowered and Poised the same week that I graduated from Carroll in 2017. I even had Empowered and Poised on my cap. You know how everybody decorates it real cute. So that was pretty exciting. And I was really inspired by my time at Carroll to continue to be a servant for others. And that's part of the reason that I even founded my business and am writing the book that I'm doing and doing the work that I'm doing. I am going to speak a little bit more tonight, as you know, about my book. So I'm not going to get too far into the details of that. But yeah, so that's a little bit about me. And Eric, I know you have a lot of questions ready to go. So I'm excited to share a little bit more with everyone.
Great, thanks, Leah. Can you tell us a little bit about why you decided to write this book?
Yeah, absolutely. So I heard about it actually through Doan Winkle, who is the current chair of the entrepreneurship department. I know he had some students who were current at Carroll going through the program. One of them was my friend Julia. And when I saw that they had a really good experience going through it, there was an opportunity that came up this past summer for a fellowship through the Creator Institute. So the guy who founded the program, his name is Eric Koester, and he was a Georgetown professor. Well, he found so much success when he did this program with his classroom that he turned it into a business. And I felt like, you know, over the summer, I had a little less going on because I was taking fewer classes, that it felt like a really good opportunity to network with other people in the field, dive more into the research so I could become more of an expert in the area, and push myself, you know, to some new limits, trying to do something that I haven't done before.
Great. So your book is about empowering girls and helping them build self-confidence. And what are the key concepts that you include in your book that relates to empowering girls and as they develop confidence in their own self-esteem?
Great question, Eric. So I first want to tell you a little bit about how I came up with these principles or ideas. And that was for my book, I actually interviewed over 30 individuals who are all experts in this area. So people like CEO and president of Girls Inc., the I'm trying to think of some of the other people. Lee Pavia, founder of No Means No Worldwide. I recently actually got to speak to Dr. Lisa Hinkleman, who has done the largest research study on girls' confidence to date. So just some really, really amazing individuals. And then I also spoke to people from different cultural, racial, and ethnic backgrounds, because kind of what differentiates this book from others is that it's not just about how to help young women build self-esteem and confidence, but it also looks at intersectionality. So how race, culture, ethnic background, socioeconomic status, how all of those things play a role in the development of a young woman and her self-esteem. And it takes into that idea, which I know at John Carroll, what we call it is kind of the whole person, right? We look at the whole person and how we can help that young woman. And so it's really important to look at the background. So I think that's just important to consider, is that when I was talking to these 30 plus individuals, it was what the trending topics were. So, right, trending as in like social media, because that's hot for young people. And it was the topics that came up again and again and again. And that's how I came up with the 6 principles. So I'm happy to share those principles, and I'm actually going to share my screen so that I can give you a little snippet of that. So, all right, can you see it real okay? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and present that. All right, so we have be that adult, exposure, representation, affirmations, be seen, and sports and fitness. So, just to give you some tips on how you can do this if you work or live with young girls, to be that adult really means being that role model. So, making sure that you're speaking positively about yourself, because the girls that we live and work with see what we say about ourselves and then often feel that way about themselves. And it's also just setting a good example, right? What are you putting out into the world? And exposure is being aware that not everyone receives the same opportunities. But there are ways, no matter what your background is or the background of the youth that you're working with, to expose them. So, for example, in the Cleveland area, we're really fortunate to have, awesome public libraries and the museums, and those things cost no money. So, there's a lot less barriers to helping girls be exposed to these things. And it helps them to figure out what their strengths and their interests are by giving them these different opportunities. And, it's not just arts, it's really exposing them to all different kinds of opportunities and activities. Representation is about making sure that we have people in positions of power and in the media who, are diverse. And also, one way that you can help young women to see different representation and to understand kind of this concept is to open up about conversations in the media. So, for example, if you hear a song that comes on the radio, maybe that is degrading women or something of that nature, you can ask that person, the daughter or student, what do you think about that message? Do you think that that's okay? Or, kind of give some pushback to some of those things, and, talk about different TV shows or movies and how that is or is not representative. The next one is affirmations. And in order to properly affirm girls, for as much as it's positive and encouraging to say, you go girl, or whatever, right? Like that would be something that I would say. But you also want to make sure that you're specific. And when you're giving her an affirmation, that it goes to her strengths and her values. Because if you tell her she can do something and she knows, that that's not something that's in her skill set, or that she, maybe is not interested in or whatever, it's going to be a lot harder for that to become true. And that's research that backs that up. And there's also some research that if you utilize their names, specific name, and this goes for boys and girls, right? And if I were to say like Eric, right, while I'm affirming you, that tends to have a more positive effect as well. Next is be seen. And that is the idea that you don't have to be the most glamorous or best looking person out there. It's that you're being your authentic self and, doing the things that feel good to you. And one way that you can help girls with this is challenging your own gender biases, which can definitely be hard. Like one thing that I thought of that was difficult for me was I was once posed with a question from one of my friends. What do you think about my daughter joining the wrestling team? She's interested in joining wrestling, right? And I'm not going to lie. First thing that came to mind was like, wrestling isn't really for girls. What do you mean? But that would be something that I personally had to challenge myself to think a little bit differently about. And then finally is sports and fitness. So my degree was in exercise science, which I still love, right? And that's kind of where this idea for social, mental, physical well-being for empowered employees came about. And with sports and fitness, you can be creative about the ways that you help girls to get involved in fitness. And so if you don't mind, Eric, if I continue, I know this is like a lot that I'm sharing. Okay. Awesome. So when I was at John Carroll, I actually founded an organization called HOPE, and it stood for Helping Others Participate in Exercise. And it was, again, that idea of social, mental, and physical components. And the whole goal was to get students on campus active. And it was also not your traditional athletes all the time, but people who were new into the fitness world. And so we did a lot of really cool things. And that was, going to Sky Zone and doing their jumping class, Bikram yoga. We did a boxing class, spinning. So all different kinds of exercise to show that there are different ways that you can get involved in fitness and exercise and physical activity that don't necessarily have to be what everybody else is doing. And thank you. I'm not sure. I can't see all of the names, but to the people who helped me with that organization, Brian Biggie was actually our supervisor for that. So I'm still very grateful for those experiences and the things that I learned while I was at John Carroll. And I'll say too, is that also helped me with my entrepreneurial kind of ventures and things that I have going on, because I learned it was not that easy to run the organization and keep it going throughout school. But I continue to push, and unfortunately, I don't think it's still there, but I did make it through at least the end of my senior year with that.
So Leah, a question kind of off the topics that we had discussed that just kind of hit me. In your research, based on those 6 principles that you just shared, are there ones that are easier to affirm, or are there ones that are more difficult? Just wondering what your sense is. Are there ones that that would be most easy for a parent or someone who's working with young girls to kind of start on that journey with?
Of the principles, so honestly, I think this whole book is about one size doesn't fit all. And so I would say it really depends on the individual who you live or work with. And I think that's what's so great about this book is at the end. So what there is there's the principle chapter, and then there's a how-to chapter. And the how-to chapter is what gives you tangible steps of how you can implement it. And for those of you who aren't aware of where I'm at in the process of my book, I'm still editing. And as I was networking and talking to other authors out there, one of the things that I think I'm going to do, which also John Carroll's very big on reflecting, right, is I think I'm going to add some sort of reflection page at the end of each how-to chapter so that people can really think about the lessons in there and how they can apply them to their life and the individuals they work with.
Great. Thank you. That's good to know. I love the fact that your book focuses on it's not one size fit all. Everyone's their own unique person, right?
Absolutely.
So one of the questions I had was, when you're researching your book and when you're reflecting on all the things you've written in it, are there lessons that you learned through that process that you wish you knew when you were a younger person?
This is going to sound a little cliche, but I would say no. And here's why, is because I really genuinely believe that the lessons that I've learned throughout all of these different processes that I've gone through have helped me to build resilience. And I think that's an important skill to have, right? And that's an important skill for young girls to have too, which is something else that I talk about in my book a little bit is, I'm not a parent, but I can tell you from all the research that I've done, the people that I've talked to and the young women, hundreds that I've worked with, that they too need to build resilience. And sometimes that means letting them fall and get back up, which is hard, especially when you love somebody or care for somebody, because we never want to see people fail. But again, that failure isn't really a failure. It's a learning experience and opportunity. The one thing that I would say though, is maybe being more kind to myself, being more self-compassionate, because I tend to be very hard on myself and somewhat of a type A perfectionist. And I think if I would just chill sometimes, that might have served me beneficial.
Makes sense. I want to switch gears a little bit. And I know you briefly mentioned a little bit about your John Carroll experience through Hope and some of the programs. Can you tell us a little bit more about your John Carroll experience and how it, if any, impact it had on you writing the book?
Yes, of course I can. So first of all, I must just say, go Streaks, because I love John Carroll. Other than that, like I said, Hope definitely, I think, impacted my experience. I also definitely, I can't speak necessarily to all of the different areas that I wasn't in. I did love that it was a liberal arts education because I think it helped me to become well-rounded. So I definitely appreciated that aspect. In regards to the exercise science department, I know that I had actually seeked out help from like Dr. Manning and Dr. I believe it's Zara now. Do you know if that's correct? I might be saying it wrong. So I apologize if you're on here. It was not Zara before when I was there, but I know that she got married. So yeah, I seeked out counsel from them actually as I was putting the curriculum together, because as I had mentioned, it was the same week that I graduated. So I learned a little bit more about like, how do you build a curriculum? What kinds of information should go in these different sections? That was definitely great to have the exercise science department behind me. And then obviously the entrepreneurship department. Being an entrepreneur, I still continue to be involved with them. So I sit on their Women's Advisory Council. And then I've also helped with Immersion Week, which I went through myself, which for those of you who don't know what Immersion Week was, it's a week that you have to kind of come up with an idea, a concept, a business, and then pitch that. And you're competing against other schools. And the year that I did it, we actually won, which was awesome. It was such a good experience. If there's any students on here, highly recommend it. It's definitely worth it. It's an exhausting week, but you learn a lot. And I had a lot of fun as well. And so I would say that the entrepreneurship department was especially helpful to me and continues to be. And I'm very, very grateful for everybody who's a part of that. I'm also a part of LaunchNet, where I've been working with Tom Bonda, who kind of just, again, is kind of a mentor and helping me to kind of build this business and the brand. And, I'll run different ideas and things by them. So that's been a really big part. The internships. So I know there's a lot, but John Carroll does a lot for us, right? The internships, I decided to go through an internship instead of the capstone project. So I got to meet people. I got to further cultivate my passion for entrepreneurship and also social justice, because I had multiple internships with startups. Helping with the Dare to Dream retreat, which is now inspiring young women to become entrepreneurs, campus ministry. So there have been just countless things. I mean, it's hard to list every single way that John Carroll has inspired me and made me the woman that I am today, but those are definitely some of the big ways. And then, immersion trips too. Like going to Nicaragua definitely helped me to, gain a greater appreciation for different cultures, which is a lot of what this book is also about.
Thank you, Leah.
Sure.
So one of the things after we launched the Alumni Author Series, I've had the pleasure of speaking with maybe 15 to 20 different alumni authors about their own experiences. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I've learned is that no two authors have the same experience as they're writing their book or story or poems or whatever. So what has been, some challenges you've run into, and then what advice would you give to anyone who has the dream of publishing or writing their own book?
So one thing that I would say is take it one step at a time. It's a lot more work than I had anticipated. I don't regret it for a second. It has been a really amazing experience. I've learned a lot through it. And I'm very grateful for it, but that doesn't mean that it's been easy. And I am just kind of the person who tells it like it is. And, I want to be honest in that, to not say that there have not been struggles. For me, one of the biggest challenges was the pre-sale campaign. Raising the funding. Thank God I was able to do it. And I will have all 4 versions of the book. So paperback, ebook, hardcover, and audiobook. And the audiobook was the highest level. And it was really important to me to have that because it increases accessibility. And also when you think about parents are busy, right? We're all busy. And so to be able to pop it in your ears and listen to it, as opposed to having to sit down, I felt like, it would be, just more readable, I guess, for a lot of people. If people are interested in doing it, you can do it. Because I really genuinely believe that you can do anything that you set your mind to. I would also say, talk to people who have done it before, right? Don't be afraid to reach out and ask and learn from other people and their process. Because like you said, everybody's process is slightly different. And even if you're going through this program, which, they're really great in having workshops and, different editors and things that you could talk to. But even that you can make your own. Like I determine which sessions make sense for me to attend and which sessions are better used, placing my time elsewhere.
Thank you. We just had a call or a comment come in from one of our participants. I'm going to read it and ask you a question. So famous Josie says, what a fantastic topic. Are you able to share an example of the affirmations you mentioned? Loves this idea, raising 2 girls, and would love to implement a personal affirmation for both my girls and my boys.
Thank you. Sure, I can give you an
From
example.
Allison O'Malley, whose daughter is Josie.
Oh, that's okay. That'll happen, right? Yes. So let me think about this for a second. So something that you would do is you would say like, Josie, I'm so proud of you that, and so say that it's something about her accomplishments in school. You don't necessarily want to talk about the achievement, like the grades. You want to more talk about the progress, right? So like, Josie, I'm so proud of all the hard work that you've been doing in science class. You've been spending all of this time, putting in your effort to studying, and I can tell it's really working. Good, like keep up the good work. Instead of like just, great job for getting all A's, right? That's not as personal. It doesn't necessarily show as much the hard work that she's doing. And also the other thing too is be mindful to try to affirm the internal qualities, not just the external qualities. As a society, I think we often are like, oh my goodness, you're so beautiful. And like, you're so pretty. I love your hair. That outfit is so cute. And I'm not saying that it's wrong to do that. Like you can certainly do that, but make sure you're also, telling your daughter, right? Josie, is Josie the daughter? That's what we said, right? Josie. Make sure you're telling Josie that she's smart and that she's athletic and that she's funny and, all of those kinds of things too.
Yeah, I would assume those kind of also apply to boys too, affirming.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And
growth.
yes, these concepts can definitely mostly, I don't want to say all of them, but mostly all of them can be applied to males. The only reason that I even specialize really in working with young women is because I am a woman and I've gone through it. And, while there are a lot of things that are similar between us, there are also some biological differences. And I've gone through the experiences. And I also, when I was at John Carroll, I was really fortunate. I worked a couple different jobs, but one of the jobs that I had was at the Hebrew Academy of Cleveland, where I taught 1st through 6th grade girls. And I actually taught them for 4 years. So I started teaching when I guess I was 20 at the time, which was a really unique opportunity that I had. And one, helped me gain a greater appreciation for a culture that was different than my own, a different religion. And then also I was working with over 200 young women, so I just gained more experience in that area. And we've actually done workshops through Empowered and Poised with, even an all boys class. Like we went to Kenneth Clement Boys Leadership Academy and CMSD School District and did a workshop with them before.
So going back to the values that you shared earlier, are there ones that are more crucial to emphasize at certain ages of a girl's development or a young woman's development over other ones, or are they all pretty much just, again, going by, everyone's different, kind of take it all at speed?
Yeah, I mean, that's a difficult question. First, I will be honest. No, you do definitely have to tailor it to the age that the girl is at, right? Because of their developmental levels. But the way that I wrote it was a little bit more general.
Okay.
I didn't break it down necessarily by like, this is what you should be saying in preschool. This is what you should be saying in, elementary school or adolescence or et cetera, et cetera. So I just didn't format it in that way. But, you could look at there's different websites out there that can help kind of break down what should be going on at certain developmental levels. But I don't know if that's necessarily I don't want to say it's not relevant to a girl's confidence, because it is relevant what developmental level they're at. You stumped me here, Eric. Yeah, no, there is different ways that you can do it. I just didn't break it up that way.
Okay. Fair enough. Very fair enough. And then one other question, if I'm fortunate, I have a 10-year-old daughter who I think the world of, and there are times I've seen that she struggles with self-confidence. And for a parent who has a child who's struggling with that, What's the first step? What is the first thing that a parent could do, or maybe the first couple things that a parent could do to, maybe help, guide their child back on to a path of growth, as opposed to kind of doubting themselves?
Listen to her. Just listen. Like, don't necessarily tell her what you think. And be open to listening to what it is that she has to say, knowing that some of it could be hard to hear. But genuinely being supportive, because there are study after study that show the importance of a caring adult. And, the more caring adults, the better. So if you have, a sister or a brother, like an aunt or an uncle for that child, or, maybe helping her get connected to a teacher that she has that she really likes, or a coach or something like that, so that she feels like she's got people behind her. And allowing her, also helping her to know what resources are out there for her. Like, if you're not comfortable talking to mom and dad, where could she go? Right? Again, she could tell a teacher, you could share with her that you're open to signing her up for counseling if you are. The school counselor is somebody else. So just what resources are out there for her, and you can kind of help her explore those things too.
Great. Thank you, Leah.
Mhm.
Julia Ruggiero just posted, love how you have a section on challenges and your biases. What advice do you have, if any, for using your voice and sticking up for others effectively when someone else is contributing to injustice through their language, actions, etc.?
I think speaking up, right? Not just being that bystander that does nothing, and realize that that's sometimes hard. It's not always easy to speak up, even if you are a confident individual. Calling people out when they're wrong is tough. But I think that it's also really important, and I think that the whole John Carroll community can say that we believe in, helping others and doing what is good and what is right. And sometimes it's uncomfortable sometimes, right?
Sure.
Would you agree, Eric? What do you think? I'm going to put you on spot here
Well,
for a second.
no, I appreciate the question. Yeah, I mean, it's always difficult when um, to be that person that stands up sometimes when you see an injustice, or someone who is being marginalized. But I think, as people who are associated with Jesuits and caring for the whole person and caring for the individual, we're called to do that. And whether that sometimes it's really, really uncomfortable to do it, but I think you're right. It's better to say something when you see someone who is really struggling than to do nothing and ignore it.
Yeah.
So,
Cure personalis. That is the
your
Jesuit term for it.
personality.
The Latin term. I could not remember.
All right.
Then I remembered. I do. Yeah, no, I agree. And I also would say this too, is different people have different comfort levels with standing up, right?
Sure.
So you can do that in different ways. You could literally speak out. You could, if it's a larger movement, you could donate money towards something, that you believe in. You could start something up. I mean, starting a nonprofit is a really, big undertaking, but you could do something along those lines. You could volunteer at organizations whose missions you believe in. So there doesn't have to necessarily be one way. You could be, if you are more comfortable behind a screen, even like people are using social media, for as much as there's negative on it, there's also good that's happening because of social media. And it could even be just like spreading positive messages through your social media platforms. So I think it's important to realize that there is a spectrum of different ways that you can stand up and speak out that look different depending on where you're at in your journey.
That is a great point, Leah. So Dr. Welke had a question. What role do peers play in contributing to confidence versus questioning and weakening one's confidence?
Well, I think they can play a large role. I think they can certainly play a large role. And I can speak to personal experience on that, right? Is that the friends that you have that are positive and who help to build you up can definitely make you feel a little bit better. Now, I also want to really quick sidetrack from this to just say that there is a difference between confidence and self-esteem, because I think that that's not always necessarily clear. And I'm going to answer that kind of more in a broad, like if these were the same type of way, but the confidence is what is outward facing. So things for like asking for help when it's needed, avoiding judging others, trusting in your own abilities, whereas self-esteem is inward facing. So that's doing things like avoiding negative self-talk, the lifestyle habits that you have, and appreciating the skills of others. So I do think that that's important to make the clarification that self-esteem and confidence are slightly different. Again, confidence being outward facing, self-esteem being inward facing. So when it came to my self-esteem, I can say it wasn't just peers, but it was also the people that I was seeing even on the media. Right. So I'm not far removed from the social media age. And for as much as I wish that I could say that I was way stronger and it didn't have any impact on me, I think, I even have, I definitely have one of my team members from Empowered Employees on here. And I know that we often talk about how social media can negatively impact a young girl and her self-esteem and her confidence too. Right. And for me personally, what happened was I was in the exercise science department, as I had mentioned. And at one point I thought I wanted to be a personal trainer. And I started comparing myself to all these other people on Instagram. And I was like, if I don't look like these bodybuilders and these competitors, or honestly, it wasn't even just social media. It was like, I was a little bit of a gym rat. So I was like going to the gym, multiple days a week because I loved it. And that made me feel good. But seeing all these other people who were competitors, who were literally prepping for competitions, which to be honest, that sport is not entirely healthy, did negatively impact me because I'm like, nobody's going to take me seriously if I don't look like them. And I had to do a lot of work on myself to realize that you don't have to compare yourself to your peers, and you need to find people who are going to surround you and lift you up and allow you to be who you are authentically. And also, I realized, that for me, it's more about the health, right? I work out because it makes me feel good. Just like the sports and fitness chapter is, your endorphins are rushing through your body. That is a hormone that it's the happy hormone. It makes you feel good. I work out because I love myself and I want to make sure that I can, have longevity and live a good, healthy life and be there for my family and all of those kinds of things. So I know this is a long-winded answer, but certainly peers can impact you both positively and negatively. So surround yourself with good people, Eric. You got that?
I got that. Great piece of advice. Kate Grubba had can't wait to read your book. I have two young
Thank
daughters
you.
and teach elementary physical education in a North Shore suburb of Chicago. Besides Girls on the Run, which I know we have one here locally in Cleveland too, do you have any other suggestions on exercise programs that could run for that she could run for students in general or specifically girls?
Ooh, that's a good question. So I can tell you more generally, like a bunch of different girls programs. One of the other ones is I don't think they have it in Chicago. Girls with Soul, Liz Farrow, she's actually local. That's another fitness one that you might want to even just check out. She's got some books and she's awesome. Honestly, one of the things that I've been going to is just YouTube. YouTube has a lot of stuff out there. And there's stuff that's really great for the youth too. Um, I've been doing workouts like off of Pop Sugar Fitness, because I've been trying to be careful with the quarantine. So I haven't really been at the gym as much. Um, as far as specific girls programs, I know just more general girls programs. So things like Girl Scouts, Rocks Girls, Girls on the Run, um, fitness programs that are specifically for girls though. I think you got it. Like, I think that Girls on the Run is that's probably the biggest one that I can think of. But get creative, like in making your own workout routines. Like for fitness week and stuff, we'll do little fitness challenges and you can do at-home workouts. There's so many things. I'm happy to, if you want to connect with me personally, I have lots of ideas. I definitely have no shortage of ideas. So if you want me to help you think of some fun ideas, I can do that.
Dave Vito from the class of 2000. Like Eric, I'm a hashtag girl dad. What advice do you have for talking to young girls about their relationship with food and diet? How young is it too young to talk about healthy food choices without giving your daughters, a complex regarding, image and weight and stuff?
That's a really good question, and that's a tough question. Dr. Jillian Lampert, is a good person to look into for this. And we actually interviewed her for this, and she wrote a blog on the Empowered Employees page. So we have a blog where different people can contribute their stories. Some are more general, so just people, sharing about what makes them empowered employees, but we also have experts that sometimes share. And there was a really great article from her, and it was how to talk to girls, and it was more specifically about like eating disorders and things of that nature. But I would look up, it's called the Emily program, and they probably have some good resources. Other than that though, I would just like be careful not to shame, right? Like, it's not like you're fat, or like, obviously I know that a dad would probably not explicitly say you're fat, but like anything that could like kind of have those underlying tones, like, that dress is a little tight kind of thing, right? Like just being mindful of that. Because that is a super sensitive topic, and the things that you say from a young age can impact your daughter for her lifetime. So definitely seeking out different resources like, the Emily program, if you have any concerns. I would be curious to know. It's hard for me to answer the question because I don't know more about the specific situation. So I apologize that I'm not giving you a very detailed answer. Like as to like what you're talking about with food, because there are definite positive ways that you could talk about food that won't have a negative impact. Like we talk about My Plate with young girls often, right? That's the government website. And it just basically is helping young girls like to be positive about their food, right? Like on your plate, what are the things that you should be eating, right? You should have your protein, your vegetables, your fruits, a small amount of dairy. And if you go to My Plate, there are tons of resources on that website. And there's also, depending on how old she is, like if she's in elementary school, you can do fun activities with her too, right? Like cut up different vegetables and have her create like a rainbow on her plate to show her that you should eat the colors of the rainbow, or, making, my interns all laughed at me when I said this because they didn't know what I was talking about. They know I was cool though, Eric. Let me tell you. I mean, okay, please just pretend like you've heard about this, even if you haven't, okay? Just to make me feel better. So when you cut apple slices and then you put like some sort of toothpick and you put like the little grapes. Have you ever seen that? Like have the car.
Oh yeah.
You haven't. You no, haven't. Oh, come on, like these fun ideas. You know what I mean? You can come up with fun ideas to get your kids excited about eating healthy.
I know when my daughter was super young, I would ask her how many pieces do you want me to cut your sandwich into? And I let her say, well, I want you to cut into 8 different pieces. So that was kind of our little thing locally in our household. So
triangles, or did you do rectangles?
Well, they tended to be, she was really big into like peanut butter jelly quesadillas. So they were usually 8, like cutting them into small little wedges, which as you got more and more pieces. Yeah. So
you couldn't really make it a rectangle then.
No, not, yeah. It would have been really challenging that way. What age do girls start realizing kind of the food conversation, or, about, body image and those kinds of things?
Young. Yeah. They're young. I would say that it's most common around, puberty. But I've definitely seen these things before. And I would venture to say that other people have as well. But I think too, like, I just keep thinking back, and I feel like I want to share this story. When I talked to Dr. Lampert, she had this conversation with me, and she said to her daughter, and this is like something where you have to be careful that you don't automatically respond without hearing the rest of what your daughter is going to say, because she said, I wish I remember how old she was, but very, very young, like definitely under 10, maybe around 5-ish. And, she was getting out of the shower and she was like, Mom, look at my tummy, Mom. And she was like, oh no, we're not already getting into this. Like, she's not about to say like, I'm, whatever. And she goes, my belly is so happy. I really loved that mac and cheese you gave me. Thanks for giving me that mac and cheese. And I just remember that story, and it's so simple, but I just thought it was so cute. Where it's like, be careful that you're not trying to get in these conversations before it's an issue either. Like, not to not have them, but wait to see what she's going to say before you go, oh, you're not fat, because like, that's not even what she was thinking. She was just like grateful for her mac and cheese. So yeah, I think, again, it depends on the individual. Some will never really have, a difficulty with these things. Other people, it can be very young. Other people, it's when they're older. So again, a one size fits all doesn't really approach, but most commonly around puberty. And actually, I should know these things off of the top of my head, but I would love to give you one of the statistics. If you give me a second to pull that up, you can go ahead on to the next question. I want to make sure that I'm correct when I'm sharing it.
Next question is, first off, thanks for all the good advice. What are your thoughts on single sex versus co-ed high schools?
I don't know that I have an opinion on it, to be completely honest. I was at a co-ed school. I never went to an all-girls school, so I can't speak from experience. I think there's pros and cons to both, just as there is with most things in life, right? Yeah, I think there's pros and cons to both.
Okay. While you're looking for that, one thing that kind of struck me, and it's we'll go ahead and wrap it up here soon because I want to be cognizant of everyone's time. But one thing that kind of struck me is we are all living in a very different world than this time last year because of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. Have you seen changes in, or did you modify your, the values, principles as because of the pandemic, or are some things more important now than they would have been previously? Like, how's the pandemic impacted your book and research?
That's a good question. I wouldn't necessarily say that I've modified it. I will say that I've seen some changes. Just to give you an example, I had a Girl Scout troop leader, as in the adult, reach out to me and say she was interested in me working with her Girl Scout troop. And one of the things that she really wanted me to implement into the workshop was, about self-esteem and confidence, because it's things that she's seeing the girls in her troop struggling with. And one of the things that she had mentioned is, can you please have something about the return to school for when they're in person? Because some of the girls are nervous about the socializing aspect of going back to school, right? Because they haven't been in person in so long. And so it does take confidence to, at a young age, go to school and interact with your peers. So I do think that the pandemic has impacted people. We haven't been in it long enough to know what the long-term research is going to say. Sure. So I can't speak to that because we don't know. I think that all of the principles that are in the book, though, are applicable regardless of the pandemic or not. These things can still be utilized. And I do have the statistic, Eric, if you're okay with me sharing it.
Yeah, go right ahead.
So I'm just going to kind of read this from like a chapter or a paragraph from the book. The first ever large-scale national survey on confidence, called Girls Index, which, if you want to find more about the research that's like real simplistic, go to the Girls Index. If you go through Rocks Girls, which is Dr. Lisa Hinkleman, this is one of the largest studies that I was talking about. And they have multiple ones for girls in sport, girls in confidence, girls in diversity, which is awesome. Was designed to develop a deeper understanding of the thoughts, experiences, perceptions, beliefs, behaviors, and attitudes of teen girls throughout the United States. It surveyed girls from 5th through 12th grade and found that the percentage of girls who would describe themselves as confident declines more than 25% through the middle school years, from 86% to 60%. This suggests girls' confidence drastically declines around the age they hit puberty. So that was just one of the statistics surrounding the decline in girls' confidence in that age range.
Thanks for finding that stat. That's definitely.
No problem. Like I said, I just want to, make sure that I have it correct when I'm sharing about it.
Sure. Last question, and then I have then I want to learn how everyone can get your book. So thinking of the political, this is from Erica Kennedy. Thinking of all the political unrest and the divided climate in our country, would you add another value to address that for school age girls? It's a hard topic to discuss and help 4th and 5th graders understand. Maybe it fits under your adult modeling tenet. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so that is a lot of what this entire book is about. So it's not an actual chapter when it comes to like diversity and inclusion or anything of that nature. But part of the reason that I even wrote this book was because I thought that that was really important to have. And obviously, being in my last semester of graduate school with a degree in social work, Social work is really big on working with marginalized communities and, social justice and things of that nature. So the beginning of the book talks about kind of the background of girls and self-esteem and confidence, but it also talks about intersectionality, which again is that idea of race, culture, ethnic background, socioeconomic status, all of these different kind of components that make somebody who they are. And the book, like I had said, I interviewed people because I don't ever want to speak on behalf of a group that I'm not a part of. And so I interview people from all different backgrounds, so that we could have a diverse set of narratives in this book, right? It's really narrative. So just to give you a little bit more of an idea is that it's not just research in my personal experiences in this book, because it does have those, but it also integrates women from different backgrounds who work with girls of different backgrounds and how those things have made an impact. So just to give you like one example is, I'm trying to think of like what's a good one is there. And I think that this will go into the book. I don't want to say the name yet because I'm still going through all of the interviewees to make sure that they're okay with me using their name if they'd prefer a pseudonym to be used to keep them confidential. But one of the young women shared how growing up, it was very, very hard for her because things like her skin color were not talked about. And she was from the Philippines, but lived in Hawaii. So she said that every Christmas, her mother or her family or whatever would give her skin whitening soap. And that was not unique to her, that her friends also had this experience. And they didn't talk about it. Right. And so that's not something that you're going to see with every single background. And so again, I mean, there's much more story behind that, like when it's shared in the book, but I just wanted to give you a small snippet of something that was unique to a certain background. And those are the types of narratives that are in this book of how girls from different backgrounds are impacted and how their self-esteem and confidence maybe increases or declines based on what their background is. And again, you can't say, all girls of this background are going to fit into this bubble because that's not true, but there are statistics that show, trends.
Well, Leah, tell us a little bit how people can purchase your book or support your project.
Sure. So Eric is going to be sending out an email, and Eric, just correct me if I get anything wrong when I share this. But there's a feedback form. And first, I just want to say thank you to everybody for taking the time out of your night to come. Thank you to John Carroll for hosting this, to Eric for having me. I really am super grateful to be here and, to be a part of this network. I really do love John Carroll. There's no place quite like John Carroll. I think we all know that though. But he's going to be sending out a feedback form. If you could please take the time, it should not take you more than a few minutes to provide that feedback. I would love to know more about what you enjoyed in this conversation, what could have went better. I'm always looking to grow and develop, and I'll be sharing those with Eric as well so that we can continue to make this a better speaker series for all of the alum. But if you go ahead and you fill that out, you can also let me know whether or not you'd be interested in getting a copy of the book. And if you have your email in there, I can put you on the email list to make sure that you get information about that. Because as I had said, I'm still in the editing process, and I will be publishing this summer. So there's still a little bit of time. But if you fill out that form, that's how we can make sure you got on the list. And also thank you to everybody who already got a book or donated, because I know there are certainly people on this call who have already contributed either their time or, their energy or their encouragement to me in this process. So thank you.
Well, Leah, thank you again so much for taking time to be with us this evening and talk about your upcoming book. We truly appreciate you sharing your knowledge on, this important topic. And whether you're a parent of a girl or not, I think we can all agree that we all have a stake in making sure girls in our community develop to be poised and have self-esteem and confidence. So thank you again for taking that time. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Eric.
Of course. Before I let you go tonight, I want to let you know about a couple other programs that you can take advantage of this winter from our office. So this Saturday, January 30th, in the morning, the Cleveland Alumni Chapter will host its annual spiritual retreat. This year, the focus of the retreat is redefining success. Searching for Our Deepest Desire, and it'll be led by Jarrell Sisson from the class of 2013 graduate, Assistant Director of the JCU Campus Ministry. Also, we will be hosting our next Alumni Author Series program on Thursday, February 11th, and it will feature Brian Polian from the class of 1997. Brian serves as a special teams coordinator and recruitment coordinator for the University of Notre Dame football team. He'll speak about his upcoming book, Coaching and Teaching Generation Z. Coach Polian draws upon his experiences and reflects on relationships being the greatest rewards in life, why they are so important to young people, identifying the building blocks of relationships, and how to build better ones with Gen Z. On Friday, February 12th, JCU will host a very special alumni wine tasting social in honor of Valentine's Day. We're incredibly fortunate to have Shelly Taxel from the Wine Spot, one of Cleveland's premier wine purveyors, along with Tim Hallett from Marchetti Wines and Alan Tardy, a representative of the Moncherry Winery, lead us through a tasting of 3 wines from the Monchero family estate in the Barolo region of Italy. It should be a wonderful evening. 2 more. On February 20th, Paul Guglielmo, class of 05, owner of Guglielmo Sauce, LLC, leads attendees through an Italian cooking demonstration. I personally have been at one of Paul's cooking demonstrations, and I can tell you it's an evening you definitely don't want to miss. And then finally, to round out our programs for February, Dr. Scott Allen on February 23rd. Dr. Allen is the Dr. James S. Reed Chair in Management in the Bowler College of Business. Will be featured in the next installment of the Alumni Continuing Education Series, better known as ACES. His program will feature on disruptive technologies in our society. For more information on these programs and the recordings to all our previous programs, you can find them on our website, jcu.edu/alumni. Finally, please consider a charitable gift to John Carroll University in support of our students, faculty, and the entire campus community. If you've already made a gift this year, thank you for your generosity. And if you have not, I hope you join me in supporting JCU so that we can continue to deliver an outstanding education for our current and future Blue Streaks. Thank you again for joining us tonight. Take care, be well, stay safe, and onward on. Good evening.